I also feel like it's a huge disservice because they kick this puppy, and now I'm so sad about that. I don't even care that a baby's about to die.
Wait, that's so true.
The emotional ranking of the scenes is Jace and Rhaenyra, the puppy kicking, and then literally everything else is the same.
The Helena beheading moment is like third on the list. It's third
by a long shot.
It's funny because it's like really true. And maybe that's a problem we have.
I don't think so.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Alex.
I'm Madison.
And this is Welcome to the Writers' Room, where we analyze media in various forms and tell you why it works or why it doesn't.
Today we're talking about House of the Dragon Season 2, Episode 1.
That's right. We made it through one full season.
Episode is titled A Son for a Son.
Quick spoiler warning before we get into it. We'll be talking about the show House of the Dragon, but anything in the Westeros universe is up for spoilers. That is the original book, Fire and Blood, the A Song of Fire and Ice series, any extended lore, books, anything written or shows about anything Game of Thrones. You've been warned.
Okay, summary.
Yeah. Let's go. 3, 2, 1, Dracarys.
The season opens in the north with Jacaerys attempting to persuade Kragan Stark to join Team Black. He succeeds but is given a letter and learns of Lucerys' death. Rhaenys arrives from the blockade and the Stepstones, and Daemon is antsy to get war started. He complains about Rhaenyra being away from the action while she is looking for Lucerys' remains. Rhaenys supports Rhaenyra and denies Daemon his wish to attack Vhagar together. Back in King's Landing, Aegon brings both his toddler heir and Aemon to the small council meeting. Here, Alicent is undermined and blamed specifically by Otto. Aemond and Aegon want to attack now with the dragons and threaten their way to victory, while Alicent and Otto are still hoping to wage war without dragons for as long as possible. After seeing Lucerys' body for herself, Rhaenyra has come back to Dragonstone only to say that she wants Aemond Targaryen. Daemon takes this upon himself, seeking out knowledge from Mysaria the White Worm, who has been imprisoned since fleeing King's Landing. A funeral is held for Lucerys Velaryon while Daemon arrives in King's Landing to meet with the infamous Blood and Cheese, who he hires to bring him Aemond's head. The two assassins sneak through the castle, but Aemond is nowhere to be found. They instead find Helena with her two twins. They ask her which of the two is their heir, and she tells truthfully. Blood and Cheese behead the boy while Helena runs out with her daughter, escaping to Alicent's room where Helena finds her and Criston Cole in bed together.
1 minute, 15 seconds.
Okay.
Not bad, not bad. And not a bad episode to kick off season 2, I thought.
Yeah, I thought so.
Cool. Do you want to get right into it?
Yeah. We open and it's this like sweeping landscape shot of this raven flying.
Before the episode starts, I also want to bring attention. We talked about it early on in season 1, but we finally have a good intro sequence. This like threading tapestry showing the Targaryen lore with just these beautiful designs. It is so clean. It is creative. It is a super well done intro that completely puts you in the mood for a Game of Thrones universe thing. And I love it. It's so much better.
Yeah, no, it's really cool. It talks about things that have happened and will happen, or not talks about, but shows images. It's also based on, there's some, I can't remember what it's called, but I wanted to look it up. It's based on a famous tapestry that was in European history. So like they pulled this idea, which is really cool because Fire and Blood itself has a lot of historical elements. Rhaenyra and Viserys, they're based on people of European history.
Yeah. And I mean, it's just such an obvious draw. Like tapestries just invoke this idea of heritage and bloodlines, and it just goes together so well. And it's not CG blood running through the stone. Yeah, it just, that on top of it, it just looks prettier. It's gorgeous. It's so well done. But yes, into the actual episode. I wrote the same thing. Very cool sweeping shots of what we soon find is like the North, which is just gorgeous. Yeah, and it's cool. It's got this voiceover who we don't know who it is at first. And it's basically talking about how, we know this, that there's a threat in the north that is like specific to the north, and that it says 1 in 10 men. This was a tradition. 1 in 10 men. They show them drawing basically like stones, and out of those men, 1 will go to the wall, which was really cool. I'd never heard of that. It's probably from the books, but I don't know. And I just thought that was interesting. It
really fun to open on the North when we don't really get much of different places, especially Winterfell and the North itself.
Yeah, for sure. And it's fun to go back because that's where we started the original series.
Yeah.
And in the after episode, they talk about it too, like this returning home sort of feeling. You get the Stark characters who are completely tied to their oaths and to honor and things, which is just so very different from the rest of the continent. And it is nice. It feels very nostalgic. I don't know Cregan Stark, but I feel like I do.
Right.
You know? But it was good. It was really well done. I also thought it was neat. It starts with Cregan doing the voiceover, which we find out. And the first thing he talks about is duty is above everything, even blood. And I thought it was neat because obviously that relates to a lot of things throughout the show. But I thought specifically it was cool to have him say that to Jace as he is doing this mission, not knowing his like brother has died. I don't know, that to me, like he's on this like political mission, you know. It was just neat. It was like layered with meaning, which was cool to me.
That is really cool, especially seeing him later learning about
for sure.
it.
Which also I want to bring this up. In this show that has so many big time jumps, I thought it was really cool. I liked that they started season 2 pretty much right where 1 left off. Like, because we did have such a momentum happening. I'm really glad they didn't jump anything else.
No, it was actually kind of not jarring in a bad way, but it was like, wait a minute, this actually just happened.
Yeah, well, and it's clear even in like the after episode they talk about it. This is the part of the show they were wanting to make, you know? So it's like, yeah, we're not jumping time anymore because like this is where it happens, which I thought was kind of funny, but also very welcome because it's like, yes, this is good now.
Yeah, we've been waiting and waiting and waiting for this war. And here we go. It's officially started. So Jace is just trying to sway them to join Team Black, basically. And it's kind of funny because the Kragan Stark says, at least you didn't threaten me with your dragon. So that means, because we know that, right, Team Green is trying to pull people to their side too. So it's funny to see how different things work for different people. In the books, the Starks originally, back when it was, Jaehaerys was deciding his heir, the Starks pulled for Rhaenys.
Okay.
Which is interesting to me. So they were always sort of for kind of this side, even before this side was the team. So it's just interesting who chooses what side to be on, right? You could think the Baratheons would choose to be on the side of Team Black, but they're not. They end up on Team Green. So it makes sense to me that Starks would choose this one. It was just cool. Jace got to see the wall. He sees past the wall, and it's clearly just like a shock to him.
Yeah, I feel like this episode does a lot of really good natural exposition happening.
Yeah.
Mixed in with a lot of really good natural sort of Easter eggs.
Yes.
Like
another one. Yeah.
The one line that stuck out to me was when they were both looking out at the expanse and he was like, the king and queen were here and they watched as their dragons, the most powerful things in existence, refused to cross it, talking about like what they're really guarding from against the wall. And it's just really cool because like, assuming most people have seen the original show, like that does have a lot of weight to it. And even if not, like that is cool as hell, you know?
Yeah. Well, because basically he says we didn't just create this 700-foot wall because there's a few wildlings out there that we're afraid of.
Exactly. And it's fun to see like somebody of authority actually take the wall seriously in this world. Because like, with in the next like 200 years, it does become sort of this like look down upon thing. But like, we know how important it is. And it's cool that people are like treating it with the weight that it needs.
And I thought the dialogue surrounding, so it's Queen Alysanne, who was the queen when Jaehaerys was king. They were married. And she tried to take her dragon across the wall. She said she tried 3 times in the books and her dragon absolutely refused, which apparently her dragon had never refuses where to go.
Wow.
So that's really interesting. And some people think that is going to foreshadow something for later in the Song of Ice and Fire series. It's the books that aren't finished. But I thought the dialogue came up really naturally and it was a really cool Easter egg.
It was very cool. Cregan is like the reigning Stark Lord, yes?
Yes.
Okay, so he was like visiting and checking up on the wall. He wasn't like a brother of the Night's Watch. Because he was still wearing all his Stark stuff.
So in the books, Jace goes to Winterfell.
Okay. That's what I was assuming. It was just like a show choice that like kind of didn't make sense, but I don't really care that much, you know? Because it was cool. I'd much rather see the wall.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Okay, cool. I didn't want to like look stupid and be like, oh yeah, the Lord Stark, and he's actually like sworn off, you know?
No, he is. Yeah, he is.
Okay, cool.
So Kragan Stark offers up Greybeards to Jace, and basically it's great. They're getting more people on their side until a raven arrives from Dragonstone. And I was thinking, I was like, dang, so if I had just, let's say I watched this in time, it's been 2 years since season 1, would I know what this letter and this raven were? Even seeing the recap, I don't know if I would have.
Really?
I don't know. Maybe I'm selling myself short. But I mean, it was clear to me that it was a message about Lucerys, but I knew before he read it, is what I'm saying. And like the raven, I got all of that as it was happening, not after. Maybe I'm selling myself short.
Interesting.
I think it's better binged is all I mean, even season to season.
Yeah, I agree. Especially starting right where we left off.
Right.
Yeah, having to wait a year or more seems weird.
I know. So then Rhaenys arrives on Dragonstone with her dragon. This was a cool shot. It was this like wide shot of, because they create with the dragon pits, they're kind of like caves, right? Or these caves on Dragonstone. It was just a cool shot. You saw how big the dragon looked. It looked badass. It looked really cool and powerful.
Yeah.
And it was like all gray except that Melee's was red. It was cool.
Yeah. I thought, it looked really cool. And then it goes into, I think, one of the strongest scenes of the whole episode. Rhaenys and Daemon talking to each other. And it's so short, but every word is so strongly chosen and delivered.
Yeah.
I absolutely loved it.
So we find out Rhaenys has been holding the blockade, which was a natural way to show that that things are progressing.
Yeah.
And Daemon wants to go to King's Landing right now, her on her dragon, him on his dragon, and they're going to kill Vhagar. A son for a son. Let's go for it.
Quite the task. He's like, our 2 tiny little dragons.
Compared to Vhagar,
Let's do it, yeah.
Well, actually, they might have been able to do it. I don't know, because I don't know what happens next.
Well, I feel like they would fly in, and then there's like 100 bow and arrow like thing, you know? Like, it's obviously Damon's not thinking this through, but maybe 2 on 1 they could. You know, Vhagar's old.
Well, I think he's forgetting that Helena and Aegon both have dragons also. So now it's 3 on 2.
Yeah.
Right, and one of those is Vhagar. So when they're outnumbered, this was not a good plan.
But regardless, it perfectly paints where everybody's mind is at, which I think is great. Like, there's no doubt in my mind what Damon's thinking, what his next move is, what Rhaenys is thinking, what her next move is. It is very well done. And like I said, super short scene, but so much is packed into it.
Yeah, and basically Damon's upset that Rhaenyra is gone and not basically commanding this war, being queen, and he's like leaving it up to her. And Rhaenys supports Rhaenyra and brings up Laena.
Yeah.
And basically says that when she learned her daughter had died, that she needed to see it for herself, that it had happened.
Yeah, which is some good foreshadowing for the end of the episode, or midpoint of the episode as well.
Yeah, that's true.
It's just neat. It's, again, like solidifying that Rhaenys really understands who Rhaenyra is, which is very cool.
So Daemon basically calls Rhaenyra a fool to go alone. And I think this is cool because whenever you give Daemon's character, basically when he could play 2 things at once. So to me, it feels like Daemon is mostly upset that Rhaenyra has left and that she's like unguarded, she's by herself. And he actually seems to be worried about her because he's worried about Aemond coming and like basically fighting with Rhaenyra, which is nice. And in the books, I was reading that Daemon really did love Laena, and I just think there's a little bit more humanity to Daemon, and it feels like he's hiding it a lot of the times. And we're starting to get that more in season 2. Okay, I really do think I know that later there's some her and him like getting arguments and stuff like that. Yeah. But I think there's to me, it felt like the true reason he was angry was that Rhaenyra was gone. Right, he immediately wanted to go and kill Aemond for killing Lucerys.
Yeah, that's true.
You know?
Yeah, which is great. I'm all for humanizing Daemon at this point.
It's not he's a very flawed person. Like, this character has absolute flaws, which we love flaws. Flaws make characters interesting. Yeah. Him wanting to immediately go and kill, I mean, that's what he does later in the episode with the blood and cheese thing, right? So I really do think he cares about her, and he just has a terrible, terrible way of showing it. You don't agree?
No, I do. I wish they would, like, again, I don't think it was shown super well through season 1, but I think towards the end and now it is becoming more clear.
It is. They do things that kind of make it less clear, like when he chokes her and then later.
Exactly.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I can see that, but I'm not seeing that. You know what I'm saying?
And it's like they can't land on it. When I see it, I like it though.
No, and it's great. Like, that's, again, like you said, like, he's definitely full of flaws, but like that is a full character that I can like get behind now, you know?
Yeah. So Rhaenys basically says, she says that Aemond would be a fool to go
my God. She's like, I pity Aemond. I was like, oh shit.
To go and attack Rhaenyra, which is really cool to think that. And Rhaenys says that basically Rhaenyra is not going to make a rash decision. She's not going to act rashly. And Daemon says, well, if you would have made a decision, if you would have acted, then Aegon would be dead. And Lucerys would be alive.
Which is also cool. This kicks off a few times that Daemon just like sort of refers to somebody else should have ended this war. And I think that's another point to hang on, like just the sort of almost grief he has about what's going on, you know? Because I do believe he feels sad, not only for Rhaenyra, but like he had a connection with Luke as well, you know? Like, so I get it, and he did lose Lena and all that. So it's cool to have him like dealing with grief, you know? And I think a big part of this episode is how everybody's dealing with things that have happened very recently. And it's sort of, a lot of people say we're acting irrational. Like Otto later on talks about how like mistakes are being made in the hour. But I feel like the writers are using this as a really clear chance to show the true intent of these characters. And I think it plays very well.
Well, it's crazy to me that they are basically saying the war effort is not the point of this show. So many times do they just like spew information about whose side is on whose, blah, blah, blah. And even in this episode, those lines would be out of focus. They would be turned down and we'd be focusing on Rhaenyra's face. Even in the last episode at the end of season 1, because the war and the sort of chess game that's being played with this war is not in the forefront. What's in the forefront is these characters, which is kind of crazy to me considering the book is a book that's plot driven. So I think, it's really cool to see these characters' actions. And he says, fly with me, it's a command. And she says, would that you were king. And that's a good way to
That's how you
like
kick off season 2.
Right. That's how you like mic drop a one-liner. It was good. She doesn't even look at him. She's walking away.
It's so strong. And both of these characters are so strong and stubborn. And it was a great scene.
It was. So then Rhaenyra we just get this very short shot of Rhaenyra. She's basically trying to find Lucerys' remains. And she's just looking bad. She's looking rough.
Yeah, I don't think I really liked this because it's the first time we see her in season 2 and it's like 2 seconds long.
Yeah.
And I think throughout this episode, the thing I was really missing was just more time with Rhaenyra in mourning, you know, because they talk about it a lot. But I would have loved to see more of it. And I actually have a lot to say about it, but I'll save it for later.
Okay, we can get back to it. Okay. So then we have another kind of short scene, and it's the ships the blood is being washed off. They're being prepped. I think this is specifically Corlys's ship, the Sea Snake, right? They don't say that, but he says my ship. Oh, they do. Okay.
Yeah, he talks about like his ship needing to go back in.
But he doesn't say Sea Snake.
Oh, no, he doesn't call it the Sea Snake. No, sorry.
So through all that's happened, they're trying to save this ship. This ship is really cool. He designed and built this ship himself, so I can see how he really wants to like save this ship. And Alan, who we haven't met yet, gives Corlys basically this like pretty piece of gold. It seems like it was like for a ship basically, and it was commissioned for Lucerys, which is sad considering, obviously. And we learned that Alan was the one that dragged Corlys's body out of the sea and saved him. That's really it. I feel like this was a weird placement of the scene. Felt kind of like...
Yeah, I was trying to think... I thought it, like, flowed okay. I think... I don't know. I really, really liked this scene.
Okay.
And I really like Alan, and I don't know anything about him, but I think the actor was just like, making such subtle choices with this character. You know, like
Yeah.
I literally wrote down, I like Alan. He is mysterious. And I think it was cool because, yeah, it's just two like hard sailor men talking about
Feelings.
these tragic things and like being very stoic, but also being in those feelings. And I thought it was just really, really good because you, like they're both not talking, but Corlys is like hobbling with his injuries and like his ships and thing. And then Alan's like, I'm sorry about your loss. It was, I forget what he said, but he was like, it was like the blackest of treachery or something like that. And it was just really good. Like it was super minimal, but I loved it.
Yeah, no, I thought it was strong. And I'm guessing that Alan, I don't know. Alan comes back, I'm sure. He becomes
He's
important.
gotta come back.
And no, I agree. I thought it was strong dialogue, strong acting. I think it just is, again, supposed to be showing how each person, each group is dealing with this grief of a child being lost. And really the impact of that, this is where the war starts, right? There is
there's no getting out of this peacefully at this point.
So then we get to King's Landing and we have Auric on the wall, one of the twins, with the scorpion armed. They see a dragon, and so they all go run and arm that scorpion.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, they realize it's Vhagar, so they're like, okay, pause, it's Vhagar.
Yeah. Again, just like, you didn't tell me anything, but I learned a lot. Like, this is the world they live in. It's very cool. I thought it was really funny when somebody was like, oh, it's just Vhagar. It's fine. Yeah. You know, because that's just so funny on like what side you're on. Vhagar is either this like beacon of like, oh, it's just Vhagar, or like, oh shit, I'm dead, you know?
Right. It's either cool because the whole reason Vhagar guarding King's Landing is like the whole reason it's still safe. And everyone's like, thank God for Vhagar.
I know. And that's cool. Like, that is really fun to play with. Yeah, again, not a whole lot happened, but like I'm learning and the world is being lived in, which is awesome.
Yeah, and it's King's Landing, the first shot of King's Landing. We arrive there as Aemond arrives there for season 2 also. Is he coming straight from what happened with Lucerys? He can't be.
I don't think so. I think this is a few days after, because they say that at some point.
Okay. Yes, that makes more sense. So then Helena is embroidering while Aegon comes in and is looking for Jaehaerys, his son and heir, one of the twins. So there's Jaehaerys and Jaehaera, the twins. And that's funny that they named him Jaehaerys. Because people consider Jaehaerys to be like the king, right? He was the best king, and everyone hails him as like amazing. And so Aegon is like naming his son Jaehaerys.
Yeah, well, I mean, his name is Aegon.
Well, so I was about to say,
you know,
it's one and the same as Viserys naming him Aegon. Exactly. You know. So Jaehaerys is in the library, baby Jaehaerys, and Aegon this was funny. Aegon was being funny.
Yes, I think the actor who plays Aegon is absolutely shining in this episode. And the director of the episode talks about this, just how he was able to find humor in a lot of his scenes. And I think it completely plays, and it's completely justified, because he has this complete mental shift at the end of season 1 from going literally to like, Mom, do you love me? To like him believing the whole world loves him, you know? And it's this drunk with power amusement thing going on. And I absolutely love it. Every scene he's in is funny but not distracting.
Yeah, it's so weird because it's not set up joke funny. Exactly. It's very much just like this character is so genuine and the actor is playing the character so genuine that it can't help but being funny. Which
is very true to the world. Like, you have characters like Tyrion who like they play a very crucial role in the story, but they are also very funny characters and they balance out all the other things that are happening. I think he does a great job. I think it does bring to light, this would be harder to justify, sort of. I wish Helena would have had a bigger change as well, because we meet her doing the same shit she was doing in season 1.
Well, I think the change should be the next episode for her.
Okay.
After the incident with her son.
I can see that as well. I just wait, because like we open on her and it very clearly stated to me like, okay, nothing's going on. You know? And maybe it does. Maybe there is a big shift afterward, but it was just, especially in the same room as Aegon, who's doing so much different, you know?
I almost wish she was like playing with the kids or something, because then it would have made the ending where she has to literally choose which child to die.
Yeah. Or even like, you don't need to change her completely, but take it a step farther. Like she was talking to herself, like maybe she's, like you said, maybe she's talking like in that weird void, like to her kids, or maybe she's like talking to someone who's literally not there or something, you know?
Well, so I'm thinking if we played up her love for her kids, that would make the ending more impactful.
Yes.
Or if she was, because of how like close this prophecy is, prophecy is not necessarily the right word.
Just these like visions,
right?
dreams.
Considering how close this vision, this dream is to what's happening, I think she could have been more.
She could even be like questioning one of the rat catchers or like inspecting a trap or something, because she says it. She's like, "I'm not worried about dragons. I'm worried about the rats," and like just doing something physical to tie it to that.
Well, it seems to me she doesn't understand what her visions mean.
Yeah,
which I think is more fun
for sure.
But I think it'd be cool if we saw her also interpreting it the wrong way.
Yeah.
So if she was maybe, I mean, she liked bugs. Why wouldn't she like rats? So there could be an actual rat there with her or something. I know that's maybe not the best idea, but there's definitely, I get what you're saying. Yeah. It's just a little bit of a missed opportunity seeing her just embroidering.
Exactly.
Again.
You know, and I feel like that's what it felt like it was missing something, because it was the same. And it doesn't need to be completely different, but just a step farther, you know?
Yeah.
Because I feel Aegon obviously has a transformation because this event happened to him. But Helaena was also there, right? And we saw her reaction and sort of dislike of what was going on. And I feel like that would impact everybody, right? Like Aemond is a lot more sort of forthcoming with ideas and things. You know, he's gotten closer to Kristen from their like boys' night out looking for Aegon, you know? So I just feel like everybody has advanced a step in the direction of their characters except for her in this episode. And I do get the big thing happens to her at the end. It just feels like she started behind.
Her dad did die, right? Like things happened. She's now the queen. She wasn't going to be the queen. Yeah. Right? You see what I'm saying? So like things did happen for her. So I do think it warrants a change for her character. And I also think that if we would have made, maybe because of that, maybe she starts trying to like fight these visions because she's like, I'm queen. I'm going to try to be more whatever. Yeah, okay. And then she has to choose her child. And then it's like, well, all this growth of this character is out the fucking window because she's so traumatized now.
That's cool. Yeah. Maybe even she's having this vision and she doesn't like it. So like they're whipping up like a special tea for her or something. And we meet her in there like drinking the tea and it's awful and it's like hurting her head and stuff. And then Aegon comes in.
Yeah, something cool. That showed that she was moving in some direction of trying to be like a good queen. Yeah. And then it all like falls apart. And then she's even more past it after this episode.
Yeah. So again, I don't know how to like fix this necessarily, but it was something that I wrote down. So.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. So then Aegon wants to bring his son to the small council meeting, which is really funny. He kind of like shoves off Helena's. He's almost like embarrassed about it. Yeah. And he like in a funny way kind of is like, well, okay, the queen, right? Yeah.
Has which got notions. Me thinking like, I don't think there's anything wrong with that necessarily. It plays fine. But I was thinking like, knowing that the Targaryens have ruled for so long because someone trusted Daenerys the Dreamer, right? Like that's crazy to me. Cause like, I feel like it would be obvious, at least to Viserys, that Helaena is from that same cloth in some way, right? She's like doing weird shit. She's saying things that come to fruition, right?
Yeah, I guess that it's been like 100 some years now since Aegon conquered King's Landing, right?
Has there not been like a single dreamer since?
Not that they've talked about that.
Wow. So okay. I mean that's justified. And I'm not saying that's anything wrong. It's just something I was thinking about.
Yeah. No, that's an interesting question. But I also think part of what it is if Helaena was a man and was saying things about like I have these prophetic dreams, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Then people might take that seriously. But right now everyone sort of just views her as like silly, simple-minded girl.
Yeah. Playing with bugs.
Right.
Okay. Yeah.
So I can see how they wouldn't take her. I would actually probably be more shocked if they did take her seriously.
That makes sense.
So then we have Alicent and Kristen Cole. I don't know. I did not see Kristen Cole as a man to eat women out. I just have to say that. Not. I didn't.
No. And he's definitely not good at it either.
You think?
No, absolutely not.
I just was like, oh, okay. But this was good. This was a place that, like you said, we see things have progressed for them as well. And then they like awkwardly get dressed.
Yeah.
And Allison like brings up the weather.
I put that down too. And again, like it's very funny because it works really well. Like they are not doing anything obvious, but we are learning a lot. Like it's clear that they are choosing to do this activity. And immediately after, Kristen is like feeling this
regret,
turmoil,
shame,
guilt inside.
I have a lot of thoughts about this. So Allison says like they can't do this again, right? Which in my head I'm like, Allison, get you something, right? Like you did not have to deal with Viserys for so long. And not like I feel like she deserves something like this, right? Like she deserves something good.
It's funny to me because she's like, this cannot happen again. And like he's not the one being like, let's do it. She's like, I'm the queen. Come here, Well, okay, two things. Let me start with this. So yeah, I think Allison deserves to have this moment, but we get this like cool circular shot between them where it's like circling them. But then he asks her for help with his cloak. Which is like this image of chastity and like pure white innocence.
And it was just really, really good. Of no words were said, really cool storytelling and this like visual of sort of what the cloak represents and her literally helping him put it on.
It's great.
And the way he feels about himself.
Yeah.
So in the after episode, Olivia Cook talks about who plays Alicent. Olivia Cook talks about how it would basically, if this were to come out, it would bring deep, deep shame to Aegon and the family. And the characters know this, right? That's why they keep it so secretive. I almost think that is part of the appeal because both of these characters hate themselves so much that it's now a punishment.
Some forbidden fruit action.
Well, no, like they're punishing themselves.
Okay.
Right? It's like this shame and this terrible feeling of like, this punishment they feel where they can't even enjoy this.
Okay.
See what I mean?
Yeah.
Well, and then we see that in a little bit. She's like scrubbing herself clean. And like,
that is
we
true.
know that they both hate themselves. I mean, maybe it is this like forbidden fruit thing where it's like part of it. I think it can be both things.
Yeah.
Where it's like, it feels good for them to be doing something they want to do, even though it's like not allowed. It's like, it's forbidden. So it's more fun that way.
Yeah.
But then afterwards, it is like the punishment that comes along with it of like, I deserve this like hate for myself because of the terrible things I do.
That makes sense.
You grow accustomed to your mental illnesses and that becomes who you are. And this idea that they just deeply, deeply hate themselves. I think it's just all really cool storytelling. For
sure. I don't know. I think it read to me that Alicent is not necessarily trying to get a relationship out of this, but like it is like a companion that she can have, because she dead ass goes, so how's that weather,
right?
Which is so funny to me. And Kristen's just like, I have to go, but yeah, it plays super well. Character intentions are maybe not as obvious. Obviously, like we're thinking differently about it, but they're very clear character things are happening, which is great,
Yeah. No, I agree. There's so much depth to both these people and having them be together.
Yeah.
Is cool.
It was also just a really fun way to introduce them to the season.
Right.
Well,
and it's good, maybe not foreshadowing, but set up for the end of the episode. If we wouldn't have seen this scene, it wouldn't have been as clear in the end. So it was just good setup. But you don't like what I'm saying about, you don't believe
it's not that I don't like it. I don't know. I didn't read it as both of them hating themselves. I think they're doing this because they enjoy it. And then after they both feel guilty.
Yeah.
But
I think that's part of it.
Okay. Yeah.
That's what I mean.
Okay.
I think that like the guilt along with it is part of what they're like. Think about how much Kristen Cole how mad at Rhaenyra he is because he like sees his own flaws in her, but how he doesn't feel that way towards Alicent at all. See what I mean?
Yeah. Okay.
I don't know. I just think Kristen Cole is one of the most interesting characters.
For sure.
And I get it. Like after this episode, I was like, I cannot stand this man, and we'll get to why I think that later. But
yeah,
anytime he's on the screen, I'm really interested in him.
I'm really interested that so many people like loathe him because like he's almost comedic to me in some way, like because he says things and you're just like, he is down so bad, you know.
Well, I think if this came out 15 years ago when Game of Thrones came out, we would all be hating Alicent, which, don't get me wrong, she gets her fair share of hate, but not in the same way Kristen Cole does. So it's just interesting.
Yeah, that is interesting. But great scene. Yeah.
Okay, so then we see the rat catcher prepping, right? Just a quick little like shot. And then we go into the small council meeting. This is another example of where like they're talking about the North and the Vale not answering, and like Aemon's gonna marry the Baratheon to get Storm's End, right? And they're kind of talking about it, but then it's like not as important as Aegon like smiling at his toddler.
Yes.
See what I mean?
I think they understood that all their council meetings were boring, so they just did a ton of other shit that derailed the council meeting.
That's funny.
Bringing the kid, Aemon coming in, like all this stuff just like gets me more interested.
Well, it's not really about the war. It's about how these characters are interacting with each other. Yeah. I thought this was another really funny scene. Aegon is just like grinning like ear to ear, so like proud of his little son for just sitting in on this meeting.
I know.
And he's like just being annoying. And it was so funny. Alicent wants to know if there was a response from Rhaenyra, but basically at this point they're like, well, war is inevitable. Like we've kind of thrown the first blow. There's no coming back from this. And then again, Aegon could not care about this, and he decides to like mess with the Lannister.
Yeah, Tyland, I think.
Yes, and he's like, he wants a pony ride. This was such good delivery. It was so funny.
It was, because it was almost on the cusp of being like a dramatic, like, oh God. But it's like, you're literally asking him to like give him a pony ride.
Right.
Like, this is so silly happening right now.
Right. And it just seems like kind of like little kid Aegon who just likes to mess with people.
Yeah.
You know, he really has just not grown up.
Yeah. And again, like the actor just sells it completely. It is so strong and so fun to watch.
So basically the blockade is putting stress on King's Landing. Well, Alicent puts a stop to Aegon kind of being silly, but the blockade is putting stress on King's Landing, and they need the Lannisters and the High Towers. And slowly, Otto kind of like hints at, basically, he says like mistakes were made and we couldn't be as fast as we wanted to be. And it's just clear that he's sort of blaming Alicent, and he even says something. He says it a couple times that and it's subtle, but it's like very clear. And then Aemond walks in and Aegon welcomes him, even though there's not really a place for him. He's not on the small council. Yeah. But of course, Aegon wants his brother there. Like, that's so funny to me.
This was another just really funny thing, because already Aemond is the most dramatic person in the entire world. So for him to walk in, immediately go to the board and be like, here's the plan. I'm like, shut up, dude.
It's so funny.
And Otto, like, I don't know what they did. He like looks older in the season. Like these kids are just stressing him out. Right. And like there's so many shots where he just like shoots his head back, and he's like, it's so funny because everybody's just like, I know the course of action we need to take. And he's like, you're all idiots.
So then Aemon goes straight to the board and he's like, this is what we're gonna do. Let's just basically, and Aegon and Aemon are both like, yeah, we'll just bring dragons down on them and like we'll threaten them and then we'll get them to listen to us. And Otto and Alicent are like, actually that's probably not the best idea because once we use dragons, we can't really pull them back. And they're like, Alicent even is like, they have more dragons than us, and he's like, ours are bigger. Yeah.
And again, it's cool because like people are making super rash, unthought through decisions. Yeah. And then they're talking about it in this council setting. Yeah. It's not just a debrief of what's happening 1,000 miles away, right? People are trying to make moves right now. And it's hilarious because they're stupid.
Yeah. Alicent is like clearly losing control though.
Yes. You know? Yeah. Which is great. Like revving up for the season. And even she talks about it with Otto later. Yes. It's very good.
Yeah. And instead of Otto and Alicent being together on things, Otto is continuing to blame her. Yeah. And it's really good. It's good setup for what happens later in the season with her character. So Larys is talking to Alicent.
This was another, like, just a cheeky reveal. They start with this low camera angle as Alicent turns the corner and you just see like the club foot thing. And you're funny. Like, this fucking guy. And I thought that was just really like cheeky, you know?
Well, he says, I tried to come see you earlier, but your handmaiden said you were indisposed. And it's like very clear he knows and Alicent knows what they're both talking about. And she just like moves on.
I wrote that down too. Like just good, like immediate dirt, immediately snaking through things.
Of course he knows, right. Yeah. Basically, Larys questioned the staff and killed the ones who aren't allies and chosen her new staff. Which, yeah, I mean, it's exactly what it is. Like, he tells her that. And I think she feels probably really conflicted because then we get her in the bath.
Yeah.
And she sends the handmaidens away. She's like super, just like, I'll do it myself. And then she's like aggressively scrubbing herself and like thinking.
Yeah.
And to me, it was like scrubbing away your sins and like these handmaidens that probably Larys hired, she like sends them away because she probably, I think it's like twofold, the Kristen Cole thing, but then also just like everything. And then this, like these deaths that are kind of on her hands.
Yeah, I got the same vibe. It alluded to her in season 1 when she would like pick at her nails. Like she was I felt, the same way.
That's what I mean. It's like this punishment. She's like a glutton for punishment. She wants to like punish herself, you know?
Okay. I took it more as like, because I don't think when she was doing her finger things, it was like the immense stress. And I think you're just facing stress again for all these things. Like nobody's listening to her. Everyone is killing people under like her order that she's not giving, you know?
Yeah.
She's doing this thing with Kristen. So I think I don't know. I just don't see it as like she's looking to feel bad. I think they're just really messed up characters. You know?
Yeah. Okay.
But I can see your point for sure.
So then Rhaenyra is looking at these ships and she like realizes that there's basically dragon remains and the sailors are kind of saying that, and she flies down with her dragon. She does not give a shit about these people. The people are like running in fear out of the way. She gets off her dragon,
which looked really good.
It looked really good.
The CG of her climbing down, very well done, very well composited.
It looked very good. And Rhaenyra goes and like looks through what has basically washed up, what they caught, and she looks at the remains and just cries. It's very sad.
Yeah.
Syrax is looking and like she walks kind of like closer. She's a dragon, but you know what I mean?
Yeah.
She like gets closer and she gives up this like really sad little like whimper and then like a roar, and it just sounds very sad. And you feel like this dragon feels the pain of the rider, and I thought that was a nice parallel, and the shots looked really cool.
Yeah, I love that it was in broad daylight. That was really fun because you could really easily justify it being night. But I thought this was a cool contrast. Again, the biggest thing, I really wish we could have just sat with Rhaenyra a little more. I agree. When the story is about her and Alicent, like we just got the scene of how Alicent is feeling. And then we get this continuation of what Rhaenyra is going through, but they keep alluding to how important it is that she's not around, but then they actually just don't show her in the show. So I just have to take people's word for it.
Right.
And I like, doesn't even have to be a lot. Like it can be Daemon going in and another good chance to build him up. Like we could have a scene where he's actually trying to be like, do you want to eat something? Do you want to walk? Can I do anything for you? And she's just absolutely not responding, you know, like, and that could be actually sad, you know?
Even like him not doing that, basically him doing something that we could have sowed more discontent between those two characters, and we could have seen that Daemon had an opportunity to comfort her in a more, you know, standard way of like caring for someone instead of like going and killing someone.
Yeah.
See what I mean? And we could have seen he had the opportunity to do that, but Daemon being Daemon and not handling his own feelings well. Yeah. Does this with like killing someone. See what I mean?
Yeah. And I think it's just a big missed opportunity because as far as I know, this director didn't direct any of season 1, did he?
I don't think so, no.
This is his first episode, and I think he does the next episode or the 4th episode or something like that. It's said in the after episode. But I feel what I wrote down as like a summary of this episode is that this director completely understood these characters. Everything was so character and emotion driven throughout everything. Even though events did happen, it was always from a perspective of someone feeling something. Yeah. And I think it was a huge missed opportunity that we did not get to see Rhaenyra feeling a lot of things for very long. Because even when she comes back in and she's like, bring me Aemond, it's like a 1-minute scene, you know?
If that.
So it's done well. Don't get me wrong. Like I'm understanding what's happening. I just feel like there was a lot more opportunity for big catharsis with her.
Oh, I agree.
You know?
Because this scene, I was like, oh, sad.
Exactly.
You know what actually made me sad, though? The scene with Jace.
Yes.
That was the only impactful scene. We can come back to that, but I think it's just interesting that, I think when it's supposed to be about Rhaenyra and her feelings and her loss of a child, we missed the impact of that on the audience. And instead it was shown through Jace at a moment where she has to be strong and be the mother and put her feelings aside. Or maybe we could have seen that more.
Yeah. Well, and I think, one, I feel like that scene's phenomenal. I wrote that down. But more build up to that, I feel like would have been nice.
Maybe even a scene where she has to basically like take her feelings and just be like, I am a mother, but I need to be queen right now and we're at war and I have other children and I have other people and I need to take these feelings and I need to like basically put them in a box because I can't handle them right now. And that could have been cool, seeing her like pull herself together, because we see her looking like shit, right? She looks terrible and then she looks a lot better. And so I think it could have been cool to see her transition from that and make that active choice to move past this because there is no other choice.
Yeah.
Right? I think that could have been cool. I do agree. I think it was very much a missed opportunity for her character. And I would wonder if it being a man directing the episode missed a mother's feelings for the loss of her child. Do you see what I'm saying?
I don't know. Because in the after episode, he talks about it. And I feel like this guy gets it.
I feel like he does too. So maybe it's a writing thing.
I feel like it's a screenplay issue.
It's just, it was so palpable, the feeling of a brother losing a brother. But I was barely moved by a mother losing a child.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
See what I mean?
Mm-hmm. And yeah, I do think it's a writing issue, because the scenes where Rhaenyra does get to show the emotion are great. When she finds the wreckage of Luke, that's a really strong scene. When her and Jace come together, phenomenally strong scene.
But it's from Jace's POV.
I guess so. I mean, I can feel both of them sort of, because they're both sort of doing the same thing in that scene, which I thought was really cool. We can talk about it when we get to it, though.
Okay.
I don't know. Maybe it's a little both, but I don't know. I trust this director. I'm like, this guy knows what's up.
I do too. I feel like he did a great job with a lot of these characters. I just think that, I feel like we barely got
Yeah, and
Rhaenyra.
maybe that's like, maybe a lot of it's on the cutting room floor, you know?
Yeah, that's
who knows?
true.
So it could be a myriad of things. I just wish I could have seen more. I liked everything I did see throughout the episode. I feel like this was a really strong episode overall.
Yeah, no, I agree.
I really wanted more just Rhaenyra wallowing.
Well, it's her. This is her story.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, it's her versus Alicent, but I know how Alicent feels about this situation.
Yes.
Right? I feel like I got more
Yeah.
about how Alicent does than Rhaenyra.
And I mean, maybe you can make an argument Alicent has a lot more nuanced feelings about it, right? Like, I feel like it's
pretty straightforward how Rhaenyra feels.
You know, which is valid. You know, it doesn't need to be anything more. So maybe they're trying to really clarify how Alicent's feeling, which I do feel like I understand. Like, I feel like I have such a better idea of who these characters are after this episode. Except kind of Rhaenyra.
Well, that's why I think that we could have seen her, the duality of her character is queen versus mother in this moment, in this episode. That's what it is. Because her taking a step back and announcing to the court, I want Aemon Targaryen, was her choice to be a mother in that moment, not a queen. And so I think if we would have had more of that and shown those two sides of her and this fighting that's happening inside of her, like we saw the fighting that's happening inside of Alicent, we could have had a stronger character moment for her.
Yeah, I agree.
But we can talk more. So then Aegon's walking into the court. There's like a funny joke about him being like Aegon the Magnanimous, and then it's like, well, shrugging, like, I don't know. And I think that like it was actually funny. Like they definitely, I laughed at it.
We talked about this. Like, who are these guys? Like, they're not knights, right? I assume they were just like children of other royal people who were like Aegon's age.
Yeah, I'm not sure
who were just like hanging out at court, you know?
I guess so. Maybe they're training.
Oh, okay, maybe, yeah. I just thought it's fun for him to have his little like entourage, you know? And I wrote this down later. I think it's when Blood and Cheese are like walking through in the tense scene and they see him on the throne. It's fun because like we've never really had a king like this in the show. Like, we've had people who don't want to be king. We've had people who do want to be king. We've had people who are like really ruthless as king. And Aegon, I feel like, is just kind of a guy, because you see him in this scene start to like answer people, and like he's kind of nice. He's like,
Yeah.
oh, we like took your let's give your sheep back. And Otto's like, we can't do that. And he's like, I'm literally so sorry, we can't do that.
Right.
And
No,
it's kind of sweet because I'm like,
is.
he's really not that bad of a guy.
He's just an idiot,
You know?
like he just can't help it. I think,
And he loves his kid. I'm like, maybe he will be a good king.
but then you remember the fighting, the children's fighting ring.
Yeah.
And you kind of like, you roll it
There's
back
layers.
a little bit.
There's layers.
You kind of are like, wait, actually, maybe not. So, yeah, no, I actually really enjoyed this scene. I think the actor did a phenomenal job. It was like, it was hilarious.
Yeah.
So this guy is worried about his flock. And Aegon's like, well, we'll return them. We'll return your sheep to you. And Otto's like, well, hold on a minute. We can't actually do that because we basically had a tax on this and we needed to take more for like the dragons. And he's like, well, can't we just like give this guy back his stuff? And Otto's like, well, then we have to return them all. And he straight up goes, people won't know.
He says, no one will know.
It's so funny.
He came all this way.
Right. It's so funny.
It's adorable.
And then someone's like, the blockade is causing problems. He's like, that treasonous blockade won't last long. I plan to send Vhagar to turn it to ash.
And Otto, again, just like, motherfucker.
Right. It's like, that's actually not what we decided, but
it's so good.
it's really funny. And then Hugh comes up and says he needs more money for like basically as a blacksmith to create weapons. And Aegon says, well, we're going to pay it. And Otto's about to go up there and be like, actually, no. And then Aegon's like, we need help from the small folk.
Yeah.
And like stops him. It was just so good. I saw like, I bet this is Otto's nightmare.
Yeah.
Which is hilarious because this Otto's at fault.
Yeah, this is his plan.
All blame on Otto at this moment. In my head, I think Otto's 100% to blame.
For sure.
And I think it's Otto likes to be able to control things and not look like he was the one controlling them. So at this moment, it's like twofold. He can't control him. And if he tries to, it's very clear he's trying to. Like his cards are shown at this point.
Yeah, which is great.
So this dynamic of Aegon Otto, and we get more of this later in the season, is a really funny dynamic.
It's really funny. And I think it's insanely smart for a few different reasons. One, I think this scene shows that Aegon is smart. Like he's smart when he wants to be, right? Like in real time, figuring out what to say for Otto to get off his back, I thought showcased that he is good with the words he says. Like he can think through conversations, which I think is good. I also think this was by far the best way to get you invested in both sides. Because so very clearly Rhaenyra is going to be all your sympathy, right? You want Rhaenyra to win because she deserves it. She's the queen. She's the rightful heir. Her son died. Like, you're never going to top that emotionally. Yeah. But if Aegon's funny as hell, I'm like, you know what? I don't want him to go either.
Don't kill Aegon. Don't kill Aegon,
you know?
right?
And it's like, it's so silly, but it worked. Like, I like Aegon so much more after this episode.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Do you like Aegon or Rhaenyra more? Not like who deserves it, but when you watch the episodes, who are you more excited to see on screen?
Before this episode, it was Rhaenyra for sure. Because I think Aegon was like sort of finding himself. If the same emotions continue, I definitely have way more fun watching Aegon.
Yes.
And again, I don't feel like this is very fair because I did not see Rhaenyra this episode.
Right.
You know? But again, I think that just adds to what they're trying to do. Like both key players vying for the throne are people I am not upset to see on screen, which is phenomenal.
Yes. I have like thoughts, but I'm trying to decide if I should say them now or if I should wait till the end of the episode.
I will add something really quick. I think I would still say Aegon because after this episode, the relationships of him and everyone else in King's Landing is a lot more interesting to me. Right. Because Rhaenyra, you have Daemon. Yeah. And that's kind of it. Which is strong. Like Daemon's a good character. But like so many other things are happening in King's Landing. Like, and Aegon's going to act this way with this person and this way with this person. And I think that's a lot more fun to watch.
I think this is the start of the Greens becoming more fun to watch than the Blacks. Okay. Because when you talk about Kristen Cole, it's fun to hate him.
Oh, yeah. Every time he's on screen, I'm like, how is he going to fuck up now?
I love the character of Alicent.
Yeah.
So nuanced, so much depth to that character. And
I love Otto, like how, like you said, his whole like life plan is crumbling around him, and he's just trying
because
to
of a kid being an idiot.
And he's like, this is his 4th rodeo, and he's like, what the fuck is happening?
Yeah, no, Otto's fun to watch. I think Aegon, Aemond.
Mm-hmm.
Helena's
Oh my
literally...
God. That was the other thing. Making Aegon like funny and like he loves his kids is such direct contrast to Aemond again, who like we last saw him like, I study, I read the books, I'm the serious one, I should be king. And Aegon's literally like, give my son a piggyback ride.
Right.
You know? And I'm like, that's so fucking funny.
Well, yeah, so Aemond being like over the top dramatic, this warrior who's phenomenal, but also like later we see he just has like mommy issues.
Yeah, of course.
Right.
As everyone does.
Right. And then Helena is like literally like a prophetic dreamer. Right. So Team Green
is like the island of misfit toys right now.
Well,
and it's hilarious.
I'm still Team Black. Like, obviously, I want Team Black to win. But, like, I think at this point, this is the start of Team Green becoming more interesting. And we'll see as it continues on. But they basically... There's a difference between flawed writing and a flawed character. Flawed writing is bad, but flawed characters are good. And Team Green has so many flaws.
It's true.
That you are watching this like almost dumpster fire at this point of like these people coming together and just doing like terrible things and making bad choices. And they continue to make them. And it's just really, really cool to see all these like, I mean, put Larys on Team Green too, right?
Yeah.
All of these people are so fascinating. Where like Team Black, you have Rhaenys, who's very interesting. Don't get me wrong. Rhaenys is phenomenal, but she's not like troubled and struggling. Like she doesn't really have a flaw.
Yeah.
What's Rhaenyra?
She's just badass.
Right, she's just badass. Daemon's flaws. They go back and forth between Daemon being like sympathetic and just like an asshole.
Yeah.
So it's kind of hard to get a grasp on that character.
Yeah, Team Black is two people who are like who should be ruling, who make the right choices, and Daemon. And then Team Green is every flaw you could think of in people. Right.
And so then Rhaenyra is a little bit, in my mind right now, I'd say like cookie cutter. Which that's not really how she is in the books.
Okay.
So I have more thoughts. Should I share them now or should I wait till the end?
Whatever you want. Oh,
I took notes. Oh. I've thought a lot this week.
Okay.
About this like Rhaenyra and what her character's like. So I guess I'm going to talk about it now. So I think they're afraid to give Rhaenyra flaws. Okay. Because a lot of the times you want a clear good guy and a clear bad guy. If Rhaenyra is ambitious and wants the throne because she deserves it and she is right and she's cutthroat and she'll do what she needs to get this throne, she's not the clear-cut good guy. Okay? So right now, her reasons behind wanting the throne are Lucerys, which is a child that has died.
Yeah.
And the prophecy. So I think they're doing a couple things. I think they're trying to capitalize off the fame and popularity of Dany. Right? They want you to be like this Targaryen woman who is, see what I'm saying? Yeah. But her and Dany are not anywhere near the same character.
That's true.
Dany
and they shouldn't be.
No, they shouldn't be. And it's more fun if they're not. Because Dany has so much sympathy for her. Right? She's an underdog. She's a literal orphan. She's a child bride who starts out with nothing. So you're so sympathetic to that character. But Rhaenyra is a princess born in a castle with everything Dany should have had, but didn't. See what I mean? And like with two loving parents, obviously like her mom dies. But I wish they would have just let Rhaenyra be her own character and let her be ambitious and let her want this. It's just clear that they're trying to give you like Starks versus Lannisters, right? Like it's clear the Starks are the good guys and the Lannisters are bad. It's clear that's kind of what they're doing. Yeah. And because when Dany gains power, we cheer, right? Because it's like she never had that. But when Rhaenyra gains power, it's in spite of someone else. And she starts with power. See what I mean? Yeah. She actually starts with almost all of it, right? She's immediately named heir in the first episode.
That's true.
And it's more about her losing that power. So I think the whole point of the prophecy being integrated into this show was to give Rhaenyra a reason to want the throne. A sympathetic reason that makes her the good guy. It's not about me wanting the throne. It's about me uniting the realm and saving the entire world. Yeah. And what's funny is in giving her the prophecy, I actually think they made her more like the character she's supposed to be like, which is Cersei. Because there's a lot of parallels between Cersei and Rhaenyra that they are
true.
not playing up.
Mm-hmm.
3 bastard sons. One of them's literally named Joffrey.
Yeah.
Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
There's a lot of parallels, especially in the books, between those 2 characters.
Mm-hmm.
And by giving Rhaenyra the prophecy, you actually gave her
Yeah.
something that makes her more like Cersei, which Cersei was given that prophecy.
Yeah, the same prophecy thing.
Which made her which basically guided her actions throughout the whole seasons. And it's like in the back of her mind. So if that's who you gave Rhaenyra, see what I mean?
That's really interesting. Yeah.
Thank you.
I'm glad
I wrote
you
it.
took notes.
I took big notes for this. I had a lot of thoughts. I actually had this thought while I was showering, and I was like, oh my gosh. That's why they did it. That's why they keep throwing in the prophecy for us, you know?
That's good.
And that's why it didn't feel tied to Viserys like it needed to be. Because it wasn't about that.
Yeah.
Those are my thoughts. Okay.
I love it.
We can move on to the next scene now.
Okay.
So, Larys, who was listening that whole time to the court happening, goes and sort of talks to Aegon.
Mm-hmm.
And he starts like complimenting him and then wants to talk to him alone. And basically he's sowing the seeds of doubt between Aegon and Otto.
Yeah.
And he does this by bringing up Viserys and calling him pliable and saying, well, Otto was Viserys' hand. And it's interesting to me that he does this because it's kind of like, why?
I sort of had the same thing. Like we established earlier, he's very clearly on like Alicent's side.
Yeah.
And then I guess we're showing that he's also trying to stretch out a little bit. Like maybe he's just playing for himself, you know, because if he can get close to the king, he doesn't really need the queen consort. But
well,
like,
did he want to be hand maybe?
I think we're also leading to that a little bit. Yeah, I wasn't super clear on the motivation, but I didn't like put it past him either.
Yeah, I think it's definitely up his alley.
I was also too busy actually laughing at the scene because of how funny it was in a good way. I think it plays super, super well because literally Larys is like, Aegon, I hate to tell you, Otto is manipulating you. So you should do this. You
right.
know? Like,
and Aegon's kind of like, you're right.
Again, it's just these perfect character dynamics.
Right.
Like Larys isn't even trying. Like he usually has to like go like jump through some hoops to like get Alicent to do something, but he's literally like, you know, if I were you, I'd fire Otto. And he's like, that's genius.
He literally gets him to fire his granddaughter.
Who will be hand? And Larys is like, I have no idea. Who could you pick? You know?
Who could you pick? Who has hand
oh my god,
king?
is this a pin on the ground?
Yeah, that's really funny. He gets him to fire his granddad, basically.
Yeah, that doesn't happen yet. But
not yet. Sorry, spoilers. Sorry, spoilers. But that's what he's trying to tell him to do.
Which is so funny because that was Alicent's mission in the first season. And again, like just
Larys is the one that did that for
her. Fucking rock of Sisyphus pushing Otto down to the ground floor again. It's so good.
So then Alicent and Otto. Well, Alicent called for Otto, and she's like, I've been waiting for hours, which is really funny. It's like pointless. But
this is literally like a what is it? Like a soap opera. Is what King's Landing feels like this episode. Everyone is just destroyed mentally.
Everyone is at this just like crazy point in this episode. All these personalities are pushed to a 10. And like, that's what I mean by Team Black is just not as fun right now.
Yeah. And it's great. Like this is there are dragons everywhere. Like give me unbelievable emotions and characters because it is so much fun.
Even later when Team Black like does act, that actually happens.
I thought you meant like the actors like act.
No,
I was like, damn.
No, I mean like when they like, you know, a domino over there topples over, right?
Course,
like when they do something for the war, which is Daemon, it takes place in King's Landing with Team Green.
Yeah.
See what I mean?
For sure.
So it's just crazy to me. So yeah, so Alicent has called Otto in and basically the whole point of this is that she is upset that he is undermining her specifically in front of her sons. And she says, let's find out if we want the same thing. And he's like, well, what do you want? She says victory. And he's like, well, define what that means to me, right? And she wants Rhaenyra to bend the knee and Aegon be king. And that's kind of what they both want. But if Otto keeps undermining her, then her boys are not going to listen to her.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like, I hate to be the one to tell you this, but it's already there. Right? Like they already are not there. It doesn't matter at all. They're not going to listen to you. I don't actually think they're not listening to her because of Otto. I just think they're not listening to her, period.
I think it's definitely not helping. But I do think, one of them's drunk with power. One of them's drunk with revenge. Like, it's good. I do think this is another killer scene, though. I think, and I wrote this down. This felt like a very Game of Thrones scene. It's great framing of info we already know, but again, from a character's perspective. Like, we saw the council meeting where these events actually happened.
Yeah.
But then for Alicent to explain it in her words to Otto, just like added a layer to the things that were happening. Like, nothing new happened, but we learned something, which I thought was great. And that's like what a scene does. On top of that, I also thought it was beautifully shot. They do this a lot in the castle scenes, which I love. It's like very classic orange fire against blue moonlight. And it works. It's like the most classic color combination. And it just looks gorgeous every time.
Yeah. Basically, Alicent says, well, we kind of just need to like keep on with Aegon until he sort of gets over this drunk with power thing. And then...
Which I completely believe.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like eventually, as long as you don't let him realize how much power he has. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
He could, at this point, be like, kill Alicent, kill Otto, and they would do it.
That's true.
But as long as you don't let him realize the power he has, I think they're fine. And she just says Aemond is mad about the eye thing, which is kind of funny. It's been so long that he's still mad about this. But I think it's because he feels like his family wasn't there for him. Yeah. Like, his dad wasn't at all. And what's crazy is his mom definitely was. His mom was going to fucking cut the kid's eye out herself, you know? Side note, I feel like that's my mom.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
That's exactly what my mom would have done.
Yeah.
But Aemond is mad that Lucerys is never punished. And Otto says we have to be violent, and she says it doesn't need to be wanton, meaning it doesn't need to be overly violent. We don't need to just enact revenge. Yeah. And I agree. It was a strong scene. I think what was helpful is they definitely started the episode not being together and are back together again, which makes sense for their characters. Being up and down with, do they support each other? Do they not? And I think Otto always supports himself, and he's going to pair up with Alicent when he thinks it'll be helpful. It's kind of what I get. Do you disagree?
I don't know. I have more to say about this later.
Okay, we can come back.
I'm continually intrigued with the character of Otto.
No, me too. I agree.
But I'll say it when we get to his next scene.
Okay. So then we're on a ship, and one of the twins, this would be Eric, finds Mysaria the White Worm, and he brings her to Daemon. And we find out they talk about she's selling secrets to Otto Hightower, which makes sense. And Daemon again puts the blame on her and says, like, you are the one that put Aegon on the throne, and basically is putting the blame on her for Lucerys dying. Yeah. So you do see his like grief for this, and he just finds everyone to point the finger at, and he wants to blame someone and kill someone. I
put that down too. It's very good. Like, it's fun to see Daemon care about something and he can't fix it, so he's upset, and it works. It makes sense.
Right. Because this is not something you can fix with violence.
Exactly.
But he finds a way to try. Yeah. And she doesn't really have any knowledge to give anything. So he's like, okay, put her in the dungeon. We'll treat her as a traitor. Yeah. And Eric stands up for her and basically says, well, she's really helping the Hightowers. Yeah. And then Daemon again puts the blame on Eric and says, well, you could have killed Aegon right there. And I think what Eric says is really cool. He basically says, at ages 8 and 10, my brother and I were sworn to protect the royal family. So what do we do when that family is against each other, when they split off and are fighting each other?
That hit. That was really
a great way to end that scene. And
very good. It made me immediately like care a lot more about Eric. Yes. I think this episode where they were looking for Aegon too helped with that. Yeah. But again, it's just like solidifying that idea of Eric being sort of the Stark mentality of like honor is very, very important. It's cool. And it plays well against someone like Daemon.
Yeah. And it gives you like what would you do of the question of things when you have this Ark and Eric character together? It's really cool.
Yeah. Last thing I'll say about Mysaria, I thought her accent was more understandable.
I think it was more understandable. I feel like she leaned more French.
Well, I thought it was very like exaggerated French last season.
Okay. So you think she just toned it down?
I think so. Which is great because I could understand her.
Yeah. No, I agree. So And then they start talking. Damon starts talking about he's going to go to Harrenhal. Rhaenys is going to talk about Corlys, the blockade, and just all in the background of the noise that's happening. Even her entering and them giving the Queen Rhaenyra of her titles. It's just not even in the forefront. And we get to her and she turns and she says, I want Aemond Targaryen. And then leaves, and that's it. And it's just, again, it's really not the focus. The war efforts are not.
Yeah.
Which I think that's especially helpful when they're kind of just reiterating stuff we know. Yeah.
I put this down and I don't know. I think what you were saying, having a scene where she had to like choose between being a mother and a queen would have made the scene a lot stronger. I said, I still wish we could have seen more of her mental state through this episode. And I remembered the last season, there was so much talk about the birthing bed being a battlefield. And I think we could have drawn a cool parallel and maybe a conversation about like the loss of this child is a battlefield in itself.
Yes.
Like there's a war happening, but she is like also fighting a war right now, you know?
Well, I think it's really cool when you have people who have seen the worst in the world and have lost and have had bad things happen to them. And then they lose a child and you realize that was like nothing, you know? Yeah. And like, we see that in Hamilton. Like they talk about this war and then basically it's like, well, the character of Hamilton was like, nothing has been so grim as losing a child. So it's just, I think that's a really good point of like comparing this moment for a mother to also being some sort of battle.
And Emma Darcy even talks about it at the last episode of season 1. They say Rhaenyra hasn't even begun to understand what grief is. I just more focus on that. And I'm thinking like maybe something really strong, like maybe Rhaenys consoles her and they both just like start crying. Because like we know Rhaenys is nothing but the strongest character who's ever existed.
But she's also lost children.
Exactly. To have such a direct parallel. And it's her grandchild, let's not forget, right? Yeah. Like this is extremely hard on her as well. So just focusing on it more. And, you know, I can totally believe Daemon's going to try to block it out and fight a war or whatever and not care. But like somebody just taking a minute to be like, hey, you just went through the worst thing that could ever happen, you know?
After losing a baby, after miscarrying.
Yeah.
I don't know. I like the idea. I think it was a really cool concept to give her no lines in this episode. Yeah. As if this idea of like, it almost flips the idea of like when you can't say it, you sing it kind of thing. Or like when the emotions are too heavy, you have to do something else. It's almost like the emotions are so heavy, we've moved past that. She can't even speak. And maybe we could have seen her like, or maybe it could have been something with the I want Aemond Targaryen moment could have been, it just happened really fast too. So if it was this moment of like, all eyes are on her, it's like, so what do we do, Rhaenyra? And we're waiting. And it could have gone two ways. It could have been this bold statement of like loud, and it could have been big and way over the top of like, I want this, right? It could have been, this is the period on what's going to happen. Or it could have been almost like hard to speak it. Yeah. Like words just were nothing at this point.
And I think that's what they went with. And again, I think everything that they did was good. I just wanted more of it.
I feel like they kind of chose a safe option. They sort of rode the middle. Okay. That's what I mean of like, the scene didn't have a huge amount of weight. It was great. I think the idea of it was cool. I just think that they needed to go fuller with it. Pick a lane and go 100% with it.
Yeah, okay.
Because even like when she's speaking with Jace, so if we're going to give metaphorical value to this idea of like speaking, okay, then let's go all the way with it. So even when we're speaking with Jace and she like hugs him, she could have said nothing and she could have shushed him. Shh. Right? And been like, shh. Yeah. To when they were hugging. Like I think we could have just kept this like thing going. Yeah. Do you see what I mean? And like, or it just needed more. It just needed to have more emotional weight to it.
And that's, so the next scene, we have a quick thing with Daemon and Mysaria sort of planting the seeds for what Daemon's about to go do.
Yeah. And he basically makes her a deal for freedom.
And then we have Rhaenyra as Jace returns.
Yes, and Rhaenyra's looking a lot better.
She's looking better.
So I do think it could have been cool to show her like changing before this scene. And then Jace walks in. Yeah. And this was This
scene was heartbreaking.
devastating. He's trying not to cry, and
we know, if I were to like label Jace, I know he is like training to be like he's doing everything right. He's trying to be polite. He literally addresses her as Your Grace when he walks in, and he's like, here are the reports from
the veil
my
and
mission
the
that you
stars.
sent out.
Yes.
And then they both break down and cry, and that's absolutely perfect.
It was
absolutely
phenomenal.
Perfect. So I'm wondering, do you play it where Rhaenyra's shoving all her emotions in the back and she's trying too hard to just be a queen the whole time, and then the scene happens? Because I don't think so. I love the idea of her being totally lost, and I think seeing Jace is what needed to be like, okay, I need to be here for who I have left, you know?
So then she doesn't.
Have that scene, and then we have the council scene where she like chooses to be like, I'm going to be the queen, and then her emotions take over again, and she's like, bring me Aemon Targaryen, you know?
Oh, actually, I think you're exactly right. So, no, I said this was the first emotionally moving moment of the episode about Lucerys' death. I mean, it was, don't get me wrong, it was very sad having her go and like get his remains and stuff, but I almost was crying when I was watching this one.
I was.
Right?
It
because it's just
phenomenal.
like him trying not to cry and him basically like putting everything aside.
It's good.
He does more than his mom does, which is not to say anything bad about Rhaenyra. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying like, this was something he tries so hard to put this past him. And it's that struggle. We as audience members, whenever you have a character, we don't like to see when characters give up. That's boring. And this is like something I learned in college. So we don't like to see when actors or characters just give up. That's boring. We like to see the struggle. And that sounds so simple, but like that's what it was, is Rhaenyra almost felt like she had given up.
Yeah.
Right? She's not thinking of this war anymore, but we're seeing Jace struggling to not give up.
Yeah.
And that was why it was impactful.
Exactly. And that's sort of like what you talked about, because aside from her children, she doesn't have enough motivation for me to believe that she wouldn't just give up, right? Like Team Green has already offered them like a great alternative. Like they're going to be on the council, they're going to be this and that. Like, yeah, just fucking bend the knee, whatever. But then Jace comes in and she's like, shit, I have to do this for him, basically. Like that's the motivation.
So I think what should have happened is she should have, I think you're right, the scene with the council meeting when she comes back and says, I want Aemon Targaryen, should have happened after the scene. I think she still should have looked like rough.
Yeah, for sure.
And when she had this scene with Jace, and then we get this moment of her being like, I'm going to pull myself together while she's hugging Jace. And then we see her crown on, pulled together as the queen, declaring, I want Aemon Targaryen, which means war is starting now.
Yeah, and a very clear showing that like she is still kind of spiraling. And that's something we explore going forward, you know? So
I think that would have been, I do think this episode was great. I just think that would have made it even more so.
I agree. Yeah, like in the grand scheme, these are nitpicky. I think this is a super strong opening episode to a season. I'm so excited to watch the rest of season 2.
I just think when Rhaenyra is the character.
That's what I'm saying. Like
you can't do her poorly, you know?
And it's in contrast because everybody else was done so well.
Yes.
Yeah. And again, it was fine. There was just a lot of missed opportunity.
Yeah. So then Alicent is in the sept lighting candles, and we're cutting back and forth between Rhaenyra
This was a phenomenal transition, by the way.
Oh, yeah. It was good. I don't remember what it was, though.
It was, so it's them hugging into Alicent praying for the dead as they cut to Luke's official funeral.
Yes. Oh, okay. Yeah, we're saying the same thing.
And it was just great.
So yeah, she's lighting candles as they're cutting in between Rhaenyra.
Like it's a candle, then it's the torch outside, and it's visually great, and it's symbolically very well done.
No, really good. And fire and what that represents, very good. And this is the second episode in a row this character has had a funeral for a child.
Yeah.
Fuck, right?
And I feel like they really fucked themselves a little by not giving enough weight to the stillborn scene.
I agree.
Because it's like looking back on it now, like you have lost 2 children like in the span of like 6 hours. Like you are messed up right now. Like anything you do, I can complete, like you have my belief like suspended, you know? Like I don't know what a already prone to being crazy Targaryen with the loss of 2 children is going to do with dragons, right? Like this is the worst possible scenario that could ever happen.
And see what I mean by throw flaws at her. Throw these flaws at her.
Yeah.
Make her a flawed character because I am going to go with it. She has my sympathy now. You don't need to keep trying to get it because this person, that's the thing. She starts so powerful with this family and she slowly loses things. She loses her mom. She loses, even losing Laenor, right? She loses Harwin. She loses Kristen in a way. Then she loses her dad. Then she loses a baby. Then she loses her son, right? So it's the exact inverse of what Dany was, so don't make her Dany. She starts as on top of everything, this amazing family. She loses Alicent. She is at her lowest. She's lost everything right now. So you have my sympathy for her. You spent an entire season getting it. So now give her her character flaws that she deserves. And let us see that.
Yeah, for sure.
And we'll see how that goes. From what I remember, I don't think they do, but we'll see. So Alicent is saying the names of those who died. We get a random name. We get Viserys. And then she hesitates. And in between, we're cutting to people of Lucerys' family throwing things into the fire for his funeral. And then we get Alicent saying she hesitates and is thinking and trying to decide if she's going to light the candle. Then she says Lucerys Valerian as Rhaenyra throws something into the fire herself. Which
again, I thought was funny. You know, she had to think about it.
Yeah, it is kind of funny. I guess that kid did cut her kid's eye out, you know?
True. Yeah.
But still. So then Daemon arrives in King's Landing and he talks to one of the gold cloaks and he says, wait, is it gold cloaks or white cloaks? It's gold cloaks.
Wait, because the gold cloaks are the guard of the city.
Right.
Or the white cloaks, the King's Guard?
I think so.
Okay.
So he's talking to one of the gold cloaks that he knows. And he's like, I hear that you don't like the High Towers. And the guy goes, fuck the High Towers.
Yeah. Which is cool. He's been alluding to, he still has a lot of connections.
Yeah.
And even in the first episode of the series, we established that he completely has sworn allegiance of these men, which is nice.
Absolutely. So then this guy takes him and lets Daemon speak to one of the rat catchers. And he pays him half now. And then he says, if you kill Aemon Targaryen, I'll give you the other half. And this was funny to me. He gives him a clear description. He says, got silver hair, he's missing one eye. And he reluctantly says he's a good fighter. It's be careful. Yeah. And then he says, the rat catcher says, what if we can't find him? And just a lingering look from Daemon. And then we end the scene. And I guess what Daemon should have said is leave then. Right?
Yeah, you won't get paid.
Right. And he didn't. So I would say Daemon is it's not just a mishap on these two assassins.
Yeah.
It's definitely Daemon making bad choices. Don't you agree?
Yeah, I agree.
So then we have the next scene, which is Aemond talking with Kristen Cole about war plans. And this was really funny. Aemond's talking about how he wants to act and that they're got the map and the coins. And Kristen Cole is agreeing with him. And they both feel that the war with dragons is inevitable. And I thought this was funny because this is mirroring Rhaenyra's team. Rhaenys even said all the men sit around the council and urge her to war. That's exactly what's happening with Alicent. These two people are in the exact same spot. It's really interesting. And then Aemond even describes Alicent as angry, which is funny because Alicent described him the exact same way and saying the anger is what's causing problems between us. And it's just, he calls her Alicent and then says she's angry. It's just funny to see how they view each other the same way.
It's good. And then Kristen has to step around the fact that he's sleeping with his mom to be she has a kind heart. She has a kind heart. And then and Rhaenyra's a cunning spider.
And he says, long ago she drew Alicent into her web. And this is where I nearly vomited at how much I fucking hate Kristen Cole. And I'll tell you this. He says, don't blame Alicent. And Aemond is well, she has love for her enemy. That makes her a fool, right? Don't get me wrong. Aemond sucks here too. But here's the thing about Kristen Cole. This is despicable to me because he's implying that Alicent is weak and naive and not smart enough to see through Rhaenyra's lies instead of just admitting that she is a friend to Rhaenyra and they have a history together and it's not as black and white as he's saying it, right?
Yeah.
He's wholly implying that Alicent is like weak and naive, and that's like absolutely fuck you, Kristen Cole. And then second, for him to like go into this war council when Alicent has given him, Rhaenyra and Alicent have given him everything.
Mhm.
Without those two women, he would be nothing.
That's
For him
true.
to go in this war council, well, like, you know, this like secret war council, and to basically say, well, like, she's wrong. War with the dragons is inevitable. What do you know of dragons, Kristen Cole? What do you know of dragons, right?
Yeah.
And for him to be conspiring with her son and basically like making plans without her there, the queen, or I guess queen regent right now, what is it called? Dowager queen?
Dowager queen.
Yeah. See what I'm saying? This was despicable for him.
Wait, is she even the queen? Because like Helena's the queen, right?
I think that's why she's considered the Dowager Queen now. I think.
So she would still be titled queen.
She's not the queen. She's Dowager Queen. Like specifically, that's different.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So she's a former queen consort who's lost her husband, the king. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
So yeah, Helena is the queen, but like
Gotcha. Okay.
Alicent is still a queen, basically, right? It just feels so like gross to me that Kristen Cole would do this.
I do like that it's these two.
Me too.
Because their relationship was sort of established at the end of the last season, and it's funny that they're just like the boys chilling after work, talking about planning a coup, you know?
Right.
And it's just like the two worst people in the world. Everything they're saying, I'm like, do you hear yourselves? But again, it's great because they're talking about things that on the whole really don't even matter, right? So many times, like, we know they're going to fight with dragon. Like, that's why I'm here. I'm watching the show to see them fight with dragons. But because it's these two saying those words, I get like the emotion, their headspace, how they're feeling. It's such a great character study scene.
Yeah, it's really cool. So then Otto walks in and he's basically mad that Aemond is scheming without himself and Alicent. And Aemond's like, well, I only serve the king in the realm. And Otto dismisses Kristen Cole, and they talk about how there's a lot of pieces at play that Aemond can't see, which I'm sure he did not appreciate him saying that. But it's true. Like, Aemond's a kid to Otto. Yeah. Otto has done this. He's seen, right? There's been, this is not, Otto's not a kid, right? Aemond wants to just like jump into things. And basically, Otto tells him to keep a grip on his impulses because Aegon can't. We know Aegon can't, so you need to.
Yeah.
And I think it's funny because we get this sort of like running theme of the strife between second sons and how so many second sons do not get along with each other.
Yeah.
Right? So like, I didn't realize this, but Otto is also a second son.
Mm-hmm.
Otto and Daemon cannot stand each other. Aemond and Daemon.
Yeah.
Right? And they change it to Vaemond being a second son. So Vaemond and Daemon, right? Like, see what I mean? And
this
now,
is like inherent prideful sense
right,
about them.
And now Otto and Aemond are like not feuding, but there's like strife between them, I would say. So it's just like interesting to me that this running motif of like these men that can't get along. Yeah. Just interesting. I mean, not a lot of people get along in the series. So maybe I'm reading into it, but
no, I think that's a good point. This is another scene where the enigma of Otto Hightower piques my interest.
Okay.
Because it's the words he says. I think the actor does a great job. He is I want things done my way. Yes. But I do believe that he thinks he knows the best way.
Oh, he absolutely thinks
and I don't think it's even in a selfish way. Like, I do think like when he says Aegon has to be king, the world will go up in flames for Rhaenyra. I think he truly believes that, at least a little bit.
I think he does too. It's so weird. I go so back and forth on him in the best way.
And he says these things to Aemond, like he's sort of putting cards on the table. He's like, Aegon can't control himself, so you have to. And I'm like, that's, you probably wouldn't say that to Aemond to get him on your side, but it's the truth. It's so strange because he is very selfish and acts for his family, but I also do think he does know how to run the country a bit. Well, and he does know like the best political moves.
I don't think he's a liar, right? He's not lying.
And we knew like he truly cared for Viserys. They established that, I believe. Like, I think it's very gray because of how interlocked his family is with the struggle. But I think in his mind, very clearly, if everyone just listened to him, there would be peace.
Oh, yeah, I think he does believe that. And I think he has sort of no qualms with people that have to be sacrificed along the way to peace.
Yeah.
Because
he's just kind of cutthroat about it.
Yes. He very much is. He's not really going to shed any tears for those people. Like, he would gladly see every single one on Team Black be put to death if that meant Aegon was on the throne and there was peace between them, right? Yeah,
because in his mind, it's like a trolley issue, right? If you kill every member of Team Black, that means everyone else is safe.
Yes. Yeah.
Which is cool. Like, again, it's giving your villains motive that makes sense, right? They are not the bad guys in their minds.
No, he thinks he is the savior.
Yeah.
He thinks that this is an absolute must. It's really, really interesting. So then we move on to the next scene, which is with Blood and Cheese, and they've got the dog, and they're in the sewers.
And this is it. Like this is iconic.
It. Yeah.
People who have read the books like know what is going on. People who don't are like, who are these people?
Right. Why is this such a big deal? And so
people who watched it when it didn't come out, like you and me, are like, what the fuck happened in this episode?
So then, the Blood and Cheese are like the two assassins. Obviously, they're called Cheese because he's the rat catcher and Blood because he kills people, right? Like, it's pretty...
Which is adorable.
Yeah. Well, and it talks about in the book, I think, that their names have been, like, lost to history, and so they're just referred to as that, which is fun. So then they're going through the sewers, they go up, and they basically end up in the throne room, and they see Aegon, like with his legs up on the throne, getting drunk with his like friends, and they're complaining about Alicent and Otto, and they're like making jokes about what his name can be called, and this was all very funny. And they literally just decide, let's just walk, and they just walk past them.
It's great.
They just walk straight past them.
Again, it's a funny scene, but it does a lot. Like, Aegon is not the kind to keep his guard up. Like, he's just a child, and it's awesome. He's just like hanging out with the boys. It's so good.
Complaining about his mom.
Exactly. And like 10 rooms down in that hall, Aemon's like, there's a mysterious footprint happening. I don't recognize those footsteps, and Aegon's like, I've got a big dick,
Right. That's so funny. They're so different. It's so funny. Then they walk past a statue, which I think was of Viserys.
I think so.
Which
Very
is
cool.
Yeah. And
love him.
Yeah. And then they start basically fighting because the rat catcher was like, wait, I'm not supposed to be up there on the level where all the royals sleep. And Blood is like, well, then how are we supposed to get to the prince?
Yeah. It's at this moment you're like, Daemon didn't think this plan through.
Right. There was not enough thought to happen with these people, and there was no words to be had. They were like, okay, we're just gonna sneak in and then figure it out.
Yeah, exactly.
No, for them to get to this issue here is so funny. So then Blood is like choking. I hate calling them by these names. Blood is like choking Cheese, and it's so
That's good.
This is so annoying. And he's basically like, I'm not gonna be like messed up because you don't know what you're doing. I thought you knew what you're doing. And he lets him go. And at first I was like, oh, like I feel kind of bad for Cheese. Like, poor guy. And then he kicks the puppy.
And then he kicks the puppy.
And I'm like, dead to me. Dead. Honestly, and done
his
with.
His name should be lost to history.
It should be, yeah.
Fuck Cheese.
Can I say something that like went through my mind at this moment?
Yeah.
I have I have a true love for dogs.
For sure.
I can't watch movies about dogs because they make me too sad. Even if they're happy movies, I can't handle it emotionally.
For sure.
And I was like, in my head, I was like, wait a minute. How did they record him kicking the dog? How did
that was not lost to history.
How did they like, well, I mean, did the actor, was it like CGI? This dog that got kicked?
You think they actually kicked a dog?
How did they do it?
Yeah, it was like a puppet or CGI or so. They didn't kick a dog.
I was just making sure.
Are you serious?
I was worried.
No, there's laws against that. You can't hurt animals on a film set.
That's good. That's good. Because I was like, in my head, I was like, I don't care if that's my big break as an actor. I would say absolutely fucking not. I will not hurt this dog, and I would leave.
If anything, like at the most extreme, it was probably just like a trained stunt dog. I would assume.
Okay.
You know what's crazy? Do you know why that is? In like the 1920s, they made a movie about like spiders taking over the world or something. So they had a bunch of scenes where they killed like hundreds of spiders on camera, like real spiders. They would just like set them on fire and drown them. And after that, like the government was like, you can't do that for movies. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, I don't even like
weird,
spiders.
Like the shot, it's like an old like B movie. Like it doesn't even look good. It's just like very clearly a shot of spiders getting killed. It's really weird.
That sounds really weird. I don't feel like I would like the movie. That's awful.
But yeah, kicking puppy, not cute. I also feel like it's a huge disservice because they kick this puppy and now I'm so sad about that. I don't even care that a baby's about to die.
Like, wait, that's so true.
The emotional ranking of the scenes is Jace and Rhaenyra, the puppy kicking, and then literally everything else is the same.
The Helena beheading moment is like third on the list.
It's third by a long shot.
It's funny because it's like really true. And maybe that's a problem we have.
I don't think so.
Okay. So moving on. So then they're like, they go into the room that Aemond was just in and he like steals the gold and he's like, set a trap. So this one's the smart one. Right?
Yeah, blood's
the smart one. He's like, set a trap for appearances. And then he keeps searching and he sees a handmaiden who's kind of like, this is weird. And he's like, well, I'm just catching a rat. And he like hears something, and he goes to find Cheese, who is who is holding a knife to the queen.
Yeah.
And which Helena. And he's like laughing, and I'm like, okay, so y'all are trying to make it feel, y'all want me to hate this character. You know, that's like sure way to make me hate him is he kicks a puppy and then he like
really double down.
Right. And he's like laughing at like holding a knife to her her throat. Basically, they realize they have the twins. And they ask Helena which one is the son. And she's like, I thought she did a really good job in this scene. Because she's like, well, I have a necklace here. I can give you this. And they take the necklace and they're like, well, yeah, we're still going to like kill the kid.
Thanks also.
And she ends up pointing. And Blood thinks she's lying. But Rat's like, no, I know she's telling the truth. And I thought this was kind of cool. And so then she goes and grabs the girl, the baby, and they're like sawing off this little toddler's head. Yeah. And the sound was really gross. And she runs her baby into Alicent's room where Kristen Cole and Alicent are like getting it on together. And it ends with her saying they killed the boy. And it's like this shot of Alicent. Yeah. And then that is the episode. Yeah. What are your thoughts on this?
I put again, I really don't know how to feel about Helena. Like, I didn't really feel super tense during the scene. I knew what was going to happen this time around, but I remember the first time too. I just didn't really, it's not that I didn't care. I just wasn't like on the edge of my seat, right? Even to the point where they were like, let's kill this baby. I was like, whoa, that's crazy. Right. Because I feel like that's how Helena was reacting to it.
Right. Well, I think here's what it is. Okay. Imagine Rhaenyra in this situation, right? Just one for one, Jason Luke sleeping in a bed. Instead of Helena, it's Rhaenyra. Yeah. We'd be so much more emotionally invested in the scene because we know how Rhaenyra feels about her kids. We've only seen Helena embroidering and other people with her kids. Yeah. See what I'm saying? And like we've seen Aegon with this kid, but this isn't about Aegon in this moment. Yeah. So I think the issue is that there wasn't enough setup between these characters for us to feel like, yeah, it's sad because like a child is being killed. Like that is sad.
But we also don't know that child at all. Right. You know, like it's the difference between Rhaenyra having that stillborn and Luke dying. Right. You know, like it's a big difference. And we saw him at like court, but like whatever, you know?
And that was good setup for us to like at least see this kid and know who this kid is. But I don't think it was enough emotional setup. If we could have seen maybe we saw that like people don't really take Helaena seriously, but like her kids do. And so like she has this fondness for her kids because it's like she feels like she can be herself. Even like Emma Darcy even says that in the episode that that's how Rhaenyra feels. Maybe we see that with Helaena. And then on top of it, we never see Alicent engage with these grandkids either. Yeah. So I'm not super sad for Alicent either and emotionally moved because we don't see that connection either.
Yeah, I think they're just playing the middle too much because what really struck me as confusing is at the end, Helaena specifically says they killed the boy, right? Which to me, I'm not sure how to feel. Is she disassociating so hard that like she literally can't recognize, like it's just like a person died, which is cool, but that's how you've been the whole fucking time. So is it like, do you even realize these are your kid? Like, do you know what's going on right now? Are you just so out of it in your dreamer world? And I don't know. So I don't know how to, like, I have no idea where Helena's head is at any point in time, which I get is sort of the point.
But I think it would have been cool is when you get here that we can finally see it.
Exactly. And like, no matter which, like, if they go on the next episode and she's completely changed and disassociated, that's not going to be different to me. Yeah. You know? And if she's fully emotionally wrecked, then the ending of this episode doesn't make sense to me either. You know? It's just, I feel like they don't have a character for her yet. They have a quirk about her, which is very cool. And you can do a lot with it, but they haven't done anything with it and they haven't established her character. So I truly did not feel anything at this ending scene.
Even more so, the only relationship they've established with her is Alicent. Mm-hmm. So, and we don't even see her being close with Alicent. We just see Alicent loves her the most. Yeah. That's all we know. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I think that's the problem is they've only given us Helaena isolated rambling and everyone shrugging her off. Yeah. And I just think I think the scene was enacted. Like the way it happened was cool. I think everything that happened was fine. The problem was the setup before didn't give us a reason to care. Yeah. I think if we wouldn't have changed anything with how the scene was, but if we would have had some other moment, it's why they know how to do this. Like they know to do this. We've seen this. Like we saw it in the episode before with Rhaenyra and Lucerys having like really cute moments together to help set up to make the end more emotionally impactful. Mm-hmm. We didn't get this with Helena's character. And so I think if we could have just gone farther, maybe with her being fully emotionally distant. Yeah. And because I do think your fight or flight kicks in, and I don't think she should be like sobbing on the floor. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? I don't think that's what's needed.
I think just a choice needs to be made. Yeah. And I feel like there's no choice. Like that's not how a human being reacts to things. Like, and there's a spectrum of how you can react. I just like, there are too many conflicting, contradictory things that are happening, right? Like she's scared and then she's not. She's like strong enough to take the kid and then she's like, they killed the boy. And I just don't get, like, I don't know who you are, you know?
I wish her last line would have been her on the floor, like just going to the extreme, unable to process it. Or, right, do you see what I'm saying? If she's like rocking back and forth and it's like, what do I do? What do I do in her head? And we could have seen that. That could have been really cool. Or it could have been her being like fully detached from it. Mm-hmm. As like, right, so matter of fact because she can't process it that way. Or it could have been blaming. I tried to tell y'all.
Yeah, I'm even thinking like the episode's called A Son for a Son. Why don't we draw a parallel between her and Rhaenyra and they end where each other started, right? Where Rhaenyra's like sort of getting over this huge loss and it's just occurred to her. So then she's mirroring Rhaenyra at the beginning or something, you know? Mm-hmm. And then maybe even her visions could just have been like, I see Rhaenyra sulking, she's sad, and then find out it's her the whole time she's been looking at or something, you know?
Or that could have been really cool if we think it's Rhaenyra the whole time. So she's not explaining her Rhaenyra, she's saying like blonde hair, like sulking, right? Do you see what I'm saying? That could have been cool. And then everyone's like, Okay,
It's
that's
got to be
weird.
Rhaenyra. I guess she's not acting as the queen.
Well-
that means we have to move, and
well-
that propels the plot.
No, I would think everyone still shrugs her off. People don't take her
Okay.
seriously. I think that's fine.
Okay.
But us as an audience
Yeah.
are like, oh, that's so cool. She's seeing Rhaenyra right now.
Okay,
And then it ends and we're like, oh, she was seeing herself.
She can even be dropping like she'll never recover. Like she's never
Right.
going to get better from this, you know?
And it's obviously could be like more poetic and prophetic
Mhm.
feeling and like sounding. But I think that could have been cool too. There's so many options and they went with the like safest, most
they went
middle
with,
ground.
do the thing you've been doing,
Right.
and then the episode will be over.
Right. It could have been both really interesting
Mhm.
to see how a character like Helena goes through this.
Yeah.
Because I think even Helena, who seems like very out of it and like unattached to
Mhm.
things, is still going to react to this situation.
Exactly, right? I don't know. So, not the strongest way to end this episode. But overall, I thought the episode was incredibly strong.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it.
I thought there was a ton of really great layered dialogue, scenes that meant something in the moment and progressed the story. And a lot of really good emotional moments that showed a lot without dialogue.
I want to say one more thing.
Okay.
I could even see Helena being mad in that moment at Alicent and Kristen because they talk about it, I'm pretty sure, in the next episode.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I could totally see, I mean, if Kristen Cole would have been there,
Yeah.
this wouldn't have happened.
Yeah. Well, I'm thinking even like, could something have happened where Aemond, like, why was Aemond out of his room? Because he was talking with Kristen?
Well,
Or-
I don't think that was Aemon's room. I think that was Kristen's room.
Okay.
Because I think this could be incorrect, but I think Aemond lives in, it's called Maegor's Holdfast, Aemond and Aegon,
Say less.
which, right, there's not like secret tunnels to that area
Okay.
because that's where like Maegor would stay when he built it, you know?
Gotcha. Okay.
So they were never going to be able to find Aemon.
Yeah. Gotcha.
So yeah, I just think, I don't know. And putting that aside, I still think it was a strong episode.
For sure.
I just think that was, again, a missed opportunity.
I agree. Again, an episode with like some flying shots, but not a lot of dragon stuff going on.
Yeah,
Just
because
classic relationships.
right, at its core, it's not really about the dragons.
That's
know?
true. It never was.
It never was. And I think it's cool that the scenes we did have with the dragons were really fun.
Yeah, and meaningful and looked really good.
Right.
I know they did like they built like a saddle 2.0 for season 2. Like I know that is supposed to look better, but yeah, the big effect for me was like the single shot of the dragon landing and her climbing off looked phenomenal. And it was in broad daylight, so you couldn't hide anything. Like very well done.
Really, yeah, it was good. Anything else you want to say?
Let's see. Again, just huge. I love how the director took this episode. It was so very character driven. I said he knows what is up, specifically talking about Kristen being a literal knight in shining armor, but underneath that being the most messed up character. I thought was a really funny way to say that and like put that in the world.
Can I tell you how the blood and cheese scenario played out in the books?
Oh yeah, sure.
So in Fire and Blood, it's actually quite a bit different. I think the changes they made are good.
Okay.
Alicent is there. They like tie Alicent up. I think they tie Helena up. And they make Helena choose. She has 2 sons at this point. They make Helena choose which son, and she like bargains for her own life. It's like a
Are
big.
the sons twins, or are they just
No, because there are twins.
okay?
There is a girl twin and a boy twin, but she has another kid at this point.
Gotcha.
So it's not about do I kill the girl or guy. It's about which son.
Which son, yeah.
See what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's just a lot different. It seems a lot actually like scarier, which that's like on brand, you know. They're gonna usually they water down things from the books. I don't think it was done poorly. But she tries to like bargains her own life, and basically she finally chooses, because they want her to choose which son. She chooses one of her sons, Maelor, who they don't have in the show. And they instead kill the other son she didn't choose.
Damn. That's
Right.
messed up.
Yeah. Isn't that
And
messed
this is
up?
still like they were still tasked to kill Aemond, right?
Yes,
And then
yes.
they just decide to do this instead.
Yes.
Which I was also wondering this.
Well, no, they can't find Daemon in the
yeah,
books
they don't
too.
find it.
Yeah.
I was wondering because you brought this up earlier. Do you think Daemon was like, if you don't find him, kill somebody? You know?
Probably. I think he said probably if you can't
Bring
find
back
him.
a head.
Yeah, bring me back a son, I bet is what he said.
That's crazy.
Because he probably wished, in his head, he probably was thinking, if you can't find Aemond, bring me Aegon.
Yeah.
Right?
Uh-huh. That is interesting. That's very different. Yeah, I can see the changes working well.
Yeah. I like Alicent not being there. I think that was a cool choice. Yeah. It like continued her and Kristen Cole's sort of storyline.
Yeah. Does it say how they like got this information?
It was still Daemon and Mysaria.
I mean, in like the book, like how did the Maester know this happened?
Oh, yeah. Okay, so it's like a whole thing. So the way it goes in the books is, so this Maester from Fire and Blood at the time of like Robert being king starts writing this. And so he goes back into the histories of what Maesters have written in the past. He's got records for the dance. It says like multiple times that this was a war fought not only on the battlefield with dragons, but in hushed hallways and with poison and secret whispers, right? And he says, basically, it's kind of hard to know everything. And we have 3 accounts. They have a Maester at the time. Yeah. They have, I think, a Septon at the time is the second one. And then the third one is Mushroom, which is a fool. He was a dwarf. Ooh. And they all will say things that like differ a lot.
That's cool.
And mushrooms will always be the extreme. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of like, and he apparently was like loved by Rhaenyra. Rhaenyra like brought him to Dragonstone and like,
oh wow.
But his stuff always is the most extreme. Okay. And it's kind of like, so sometimes I'm like, well, wait, I think Mushroom was right here. And then sometimes I'm like, well, no way.
Mushroom. Yeah.
Right? Like, of course you're going to say your last thing to get back at everyone who laughed at you and was awful to you is to like write in the history books how like really fucked up things about them.
Yeah.
So it's very interesting and it's like hard to know what's to be believed. And I'm wondering if, since George R.R. Martin works on this show, would you like consider the show to be the like true truth? The true history?
Yeah, that's interesting. I would probably assume so because we're not from any biased perspective. Like we're clearly showing every character.
Yeah.
So I feel like this is, even though it differs I feel like this is definitively what happens in the TV show universe.
That's kind of what I'm thinking too.
So yeah, really strong episode. I'm excited to watch the rest of the season.
My quote for the episode is kind of silly.
Okay.
But I decided it's winter is coming.
Classic.
Because we're not going to hear it again. It's not going to be a part of the series. But I was waiting for this Stark to say it the entire time. In my head, I was like, say it.
That's
say
a good one.
Say it. And he did. That's like when he ended. I think he ended his monologue at the beginning. His like voiceover monologue with Winter is Coming. And to hear it again at the wall, to open season 2, I just thought it was really fun.
Thanks so much for listening. If you enjoyed it, interacting is the best way to support us, whether that be liking, following, whatever specific platform you're on, and then just word of mouth. Tell your friends about us. If you've got somebody with strong opinions who would like to hear ours, we'd love to chat with them. Beyond the show, follow us on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, all of that good stuff. I'm Alex.
I'm Madison.
And this has been
Welcome to the Writers' Room.
See you next time.